Hello students, welcome to the wrap-up video for the first unit of this term. What I'm going to do is talk about things I saw as I was grading papers and in the discussion forum for you to take and apply and hopefully make things easier on yourself. So I have my notes, so I'm looking down. That's what I'm looking at are my notes. And this video is going to be a little longer than they normally are because it's the first week and I've got a lot to talk about. So first thing is, all right, so just some APA formatting errors that I saw, that I always see repeatedly, and it held true in this class. Extra line spacing, you should be double spacing only through your paper. So if you have extra spacing before or after lines, then that is not correct. So in your papers, I gave you instructions on how to remove the additional line spacing. It should only be double spaced, except for the title page, you have an extra double space, but otherwise only double spaced. Don't add extra, don't hit the enter key an extra time between paragraphs or between headings. Just double space through your paper, okay? Title page, you are required to have a title page. I've talked about this a couple of times. I'm not going to talk any more about it. You are required to have a title page. If you're not sure what that is, go into APA Style or Purdue OWL, and they're going to have instructions on how to set up your title page, but you are required to have one as a student. Also, student papers do not use a running head, so you should have no header or footer other than the page numbers in the top right-hand corner. Okay, contractions. APA does not allow contractions. It's a formal voice that you're writing in for academia, so don't use contractions. Just spell out, is not, will not, whatever the contraction is, it is, spell it out. Let's see. APA does not use a conclusion paragraph, so just conclude. When you're done with your paper, you should have some kind of brief summary of the things you talked about, but don't use a heading conclusion. If you really, really need to, you can say in conclusion, whatever, but you really don't need that. Just provide a paragraph or two that is a conclusion, is a summary of your paper. Okay, do not use block style margins. You should have left justified margins. If you used block style, I told you that, but in most journals or books, you see block style where both margins are even, but do not do that in your paper. Please use what we call ragged margin, I think. Let's see, retrieved from. So you really only need to use the retrieval date on web pages that you think are unstable. So you don't need a retrieved from date from a book or a journal article, because they're not going to change. They're published. But if you go on to Simply Psychology, I recommend you put a retrieval date, because if the owner of the web page goes in and makes some changes, and then I, as the reader, go look at that website or that web page, I'm like, that's not what it says. Your retrieval date will say, well, on June 28, 2025, it did say this. So you don't need a retrieval date for something that is stable. Think of something that's published, but I recommend it for web pages that may change. Okay, let's see. Sources for statements. So a lot of you make statements like active learning is a valuable tool for teachers. Okay, I don't disagree, but who says that? That's you. Number one, you learned that somewhere. You didn't just wake up knowing that active learning is a good strategy. So you read it or you learned it. Maybe it was in EDUC 5010, 2 years ago. But you need to cite your source. So when you make a blanket statement like active learning strategies result in higher learning outcomes, who says? because you are just a student. Even if I said that, I need to provide a source because that's not my area of expertise. I mean, it is, but I'm not writing the article. So don't just make a statement and then expect the reader to believe you. Additionally, you need to elaborate. So if you say active learning strategies lead to higher learning outcomes, and then you go say something else, whoa, back up. Why? Why do they lead to higher outcomes? What's the value of active learning? Okay, so make a statement, absolutely. That might be your topic sentence, for example. But then you have to elaborate and you have to provide a source. Let's see, always. Okay, so I always like to welcome my students in the morning. Okay, that's hyperbole. Nobody always does everything. So, yeah, maybe you stand at the door every morning and welcome your students, but number one, there's probably a morning you didn't do that. And number two, more importantly, that is hyperbole, and we don't have hyperbole in academic writing. So don't say, I always introduce new students to the class, or I always use a hook to get students interested. You mean to, and you probably do often, but nobody always does anything. Okay. Let's see. All right. So there were 13 of you who got a message from me that you had not yet looked at any of the posts in the course forum or announcements forum. And this was, I believe, Friday. So 1 week in, and you had not looked at any posts from me. And it's not like, oh, my feelings are hurt, but I put those posts in there to help you be successful. So I expect you to take advantage of my expertise, my doing the work of finding these resources for you. And that's why I get questions like, Dr. Wolf, do I need to have a word count in my paper? No, I told you that in the announcements forum. You didn't read it. So pay attention when there is something new posted. I do that for a reason. If you can't watch these videos, well, if you're watching this video, I guess you can. But if you have a hard time watching videos, that's okay. That's why I try to summarize it. But you need to be looking at those resources that are in the discussion, in the announcements in course forums, please. Let's see, assume the readers. Okay, so sometimes some of you will write a sentence like, think, pair, share is a great learning tool. True. But don't assume your reader knows what think, pair, share is. So even though, say, well, I'm writing this for a class, everybody in here knows what think, pair, share is. Probably. But you need to be in the habit of explaining yourself, elaborating, not assuming your reader knows what you're talking about. And I see that a lot with the IB teachers, because y'all have your own, kind of way of doing things, and y'all speak the same language. Those of us who don't teach IB may not know what you're talking about. So if you talk about something that could at all be misunderstood or questioned, you need to explain just briefly what you're talking about. So even if it's everybody knows what think, pair, share is, well, maybe, but I bet there's somebody that doesn't, and we don't want the reader to have to go look up something that you're talking about, just so they'll have context or background information. Okay. Definition of instructional strategy. Okay, so in the papers, you said, I'm going, here's the definition. You defined instructional strategy. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. You need a source. Who said that instructional strategies are the ways and means of communicating information? Whatever, we had several different ways of saying the same thing, but only 2 people provided a citation for their definition. So You didn't just wake up knowing this information. Like I said earlier, you learned it somewhere, either in 50, one of your earlier classes, or you read it on your own. So give the source credit for where you learned this information. All right, now the other thing I want to talk about, so that's kind of all about the papers, but this is my tracking tool for discussion posts. So what I do is I go through and make sure that you have rated and responded to at least 3 peers. And then I look at your responses. So if they're substantive, if you ask a follow up question, if you provide a brand new resource, you get bonus points for that. If your responses are not substantive, I will give you one warning and say, hey, this doesn't meet the criteria. I have an example for you in the announcements forum of exemplars, basically, and then non-examples. So make sure you are responding to 3 peers and then also rating. And that sometimes gets students tripped up. They respond, but they forget to rate. You have to do both. So I guarantee you somebody's going to write me and say, I responded to 3 peers and you took off points. Yes, because you did not rate them. Now, if you can tell me who you rated, absolutely, I could have made a mistake. The way I'd have to track them is a little bit complex. So, yeah, absolutely, I could have made a mistake. Just tell me. But don't say I responded to 3 students if the points off are for not rating students. Okay, all right. So I think that is it. It's been a busy start. I edited every single paper, all 24 of you, word for word. So in Unit 3, I will be taking off points for incorrectly formatted references in the discussion forum, and then I will be taking off points for excessive APA errors in your paper. And it doesn't take much to be excessive because I have gone to the trouble of editing word by word your papers. So I expect you to not only correct your formatting, but also, when I said you need more details, this you're making this statement and you're not following up, you're not elaborating. So I will be taking off points. So I don't just let peers grade and then that's all. I go back in and look at papers and adjust grades as needed. All right. So as always, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. And thanks for listening.